Alex, one of the classical closer to truth questions is what exists. And what I mean by that is what are the total number of irreducible categories that can encompass all there is? So how would you address that question?
I'm tempted to say that only one thing exists, or at the very least, only one type of thing exists. In that, like, okay, absent considerations of like consciousness, I've for a long time been what's known as a mereological nihilist. Mereology is the study of parts and their relation to wholes. So, like, there's a table in front of us, and the table is a single object, but it also seems to be made up of objects. It's made up of the tabletop, it's made up of the legs. And the legs are there are four of them. There are four individual legs, and the legs have individual feet. And so, like, when I sort of look in front of me and say, how many objects are there? Like, I sometimes ask people, how many objects are on the table? And they might say that there are two objects on the table. There are two mugs. And I say, okay, so is the handle of a mug not an object? Well, it is, but it seems weird to count it twice. Like, you wouldn't say there are two mugs and there are two mug handles, so there are four objects on the table. What about the rim? Now there are six objects. What about the left-hand side of the rim? You know what I mean? Like clearly, something is going wrong if I keep considering these as new objects. Even though the thing that I'm referring to is there, it seems weird to sort of count it as like an ontological object. So I like to ask people, does the left-hand side of that table exist? The answer is yes, because the thing I'm referring to by the left-hand side of the table, which is this physical matter right here that I've sort of designated up, it's there. I can touch it. It's real. But clearly its designation as the left-hand side of the table, as distinct from the right-hand side, is a mental distinction. It's not like a real ontological distinction. So really there's only one type of thing that I've sort of divvied up. The mereological nihilist says that what is true of the left and right-hand side of the table is also true of the table and the cup, and the cup and the carpet, and the carpet and the clouds, and all material objects. Because realistically, what we are sort of engaged in the material world is a bunch of matter, whatever that might be. Maybe it's consciousness, maybe it's strings, who knows. But whatever the stuff itself is, it's just kind of like arranged in various ways. And a helpful way to think about that is to think about objects beginning to exist. When did this chair begin to exist? Well, I don't know, but I'm pretty confident the chair didn't exist 1,000 years ago. However, no new matter or energy ever gets created, and no matter or energy gets destroyed. When this chair did begin to exist, no new matter just like came into existence. Instead, a bunch of pre-existing matter was taken, rearranged, and given a new form and given a new label. When a car begins to exist, there's no new matter. It's a bunch of metal and rubber and leather that gets arranged in a various way. It's existed for a really long time. It just gets arranged in a new way and given a new name. And we count that as a new object. But really what we've got is just a new form. Now, you might be a hylomorphist. You might say that what an object is a mixture of matter and form. And you need both of those in order to get an object. That's totally fine. But to me, what form is essentially a kind of arrangement. And what we count as one arrangement versus another arrangement, or whether we count a particular thing as an arrangement or a part of another arrangement, is completely arbitrary. The only non-arbitrary answer to the question of how many things are on that table is one. And so that's my view. So as a mereological nihilist, I look at that question and say, well, like, I think that there are just what they sometimes call mereological simples. And that's to avoid like theoretical commitments. Because if you say atoms, well, what's an atom? Who knows? So whatever is in fact the smallest sort of unit of stuff, that's what exists.
Is it stuff or consciousness, and the stuff is emergent from that?
I think consciousness is a kind of stuff. When I use the word stuff there, I mean whatever it is. It could be consciousness, it could be physical matter, whatever that is for people. It could be vibrating strings, it could be quantum wave fields, whatever it is.
But these are different. These are part of the same category.
No, they're very different kinds of things. But insofar as talking about what objects are made of, I'm saying that they all sort of serve the same role, which is that there would just be one thing, there would be one fundamental
But it has to
nature.
get back to the point about what are the minimum irreducible categories that you would have as fundamental reality. What are those categories? You have Mereological nihilism, so that I think that refers to the physical world is only the fundamental physical stuff without making the commitment to whether it's quantum fields or strings or whatever, and that's fine, that's good. But then you have consciousness as well. I mean, how are you articulating those two? Are they both irreducible? Because then you're a dualist.
Yeah,
and you're not.
No.
That's the last thing I'd accuse you of.
No, I think that like the mereological, like if you're a panpsychist, then the mereological simples are just sort of fundamental units of consciousness, and you're made out of them. I'm made out of them. The thing which I'm using to come up with distinctions and categories is made out of them. That's all there is. There's just one. Like you can imagine, like a bunch of tiny little marbles.
Okay,
and all little bundles of
works.
consciousness, and that's all there is. So the only like ontological category on that view would be those individual units of consciousness that then move around and arrange and sort of get put together in various ways. And then one of those arrangements is like the human brain, which starts inventing this idea of like concepts and distinctions, and then applies those distinctions to the mereological simples, and then we end up with chairs and tables and stuff. But really it's just this sort of, messy sort of ocean of fundamental units, and the only ontological distinction is between those little units of consciousness. That to me sounds a little bit weird, a little bit of it's probably the wrong way to think about it.
Well, everything is going to sound weird when you're dealing with these questions.
Exactly.
But now let's push you a little bit. What about abstract objects? Is that another category of reality?
Well, I think you're quite right to say that, like, so far I've been talking about the material world, which is why at the beginning I said, like, absent considerations of consciousness. When I realized that consciousness exists, and when I realized that dualism is probably false, I would rather say that whatever is the fundamental nature of the material world, as we call it, is somehow consciousness or a product of consciousness. And if that's the case, then like the one type of thing that exists would not be like individual mereological simples, but consciousness, which somehow manifests as those simples. That there's like the deeper sort of metaphysical starting point is consciousness, and that those little individual balls of consciousness sort of come out of it somehow.
Now, if you're starting with this big stuff of consciousness and then decomposing it into the various physical or mental states, I mean, the consciousness that begins with, is that an ontological simple? If it's a simple, I think, there either horn of the dilemma you get caught on. If it's a simple, how is it then having this internal properties of being able to decompose itself? Because that is a mechanism that has to work, or else we wouldn't see all the varieties we do.
Yep.
And if it's not a simple, and if the totality is this complex thing with parts, I mean, that doesn't sound like something that's ultimate.
Well, why not? Why can't the thing which is ultimate be non-simple?
And have lots of different parts. I mean, wouldn't and so baked into that that one reality are these rules.
Yeah, I understand that.
Of how things will devolve.
But notice that we've kind of rediscovered like scholastic metaphysics here. Right? This is exactly what Aquinas spends his time worrying about when he's talking about God. He's like, well, God is the sort of unactualized actualizer. It's pure act, no potentiality, so no divisions, no material like creation. That didn't and his conclusion is that God is ultimately simple, but somehow is also the producer of this very non-simple, complex world. Now, like, I don't know what I think about divine simplicity, but I would imagine that if you are like an idealist of the kind that thinks that there is sort of one mereological, like simple component, and that component is consciousness, it would probably have to function in the same kind of way. Of course, ultimately, I just don't know. What I want to say is that, like, before I started thinking about consciousness, I was just a straightforward mereological nihilist, and I thought that all that existed were whatever the most fundamental divisible unit was, and that everything else is made out of that, and that we sort of put labels on it, and that's how we get objects. Since discovering
that's a very coherent position.
I think totally so, right?
I like
but
that.
As you quite point out, when you start thinking about consciousness, it just throws this massive spanner in the works, because of course something is doing the dividing. Like, yeah, okay, so the only thing, so the left-hand side of the table isn't a real, like, ontological category. It only exists in my mind. Okay, where's my mind then? Like, is my mind prior to the sort of mereological simples? Is it made up of mereological simples? If that's the case, then, as you say, why does it seem to sort of act and function differently? And then we're just talking about the problem of consciousness again, aren't we? Like, there's a great argument, I think, from, I think it was Peter van Inwagen, who from mereological nihilism makes this argument for the immateriality of the soul. It's kind of novel. He says, premise 1, there are no real distinctions between material objects. Premise 2, but minds are really distinct. Conclusion, therefore minds are not material objects. Like, yeah, very clever, very cool. And it does seem like minds are distinct from one another, that they've got their own thing going on, in a way that doesn't fit into the mereological nihilist picture. But then, maybe the self is an illusion. Maybe our minds are not really distinct. Maybe when I say I am doing this categorization, I am calling it the left-hand side of the table, that's kind of an illusion. I don't know. It's complicated and it's long. But I do think that consciousness as foundational does throw a spanner in the works for mereological nihilism. And I think that the most promising way out of that is, as you say, to imagine one great big sort of simple consciousness out of which everything else comes. But then you're left with a huge question mark as to how individual consciousness, like simple consciousness, sort of diversifies. And if you ask a theologian, the answer will be, well, what is the one thing that ultimate sort of limitless being lacks? Limits. And so it imposes limits on itself to experience the totality of experience, or something like that. At that point, you're basically talking about pantheism.
Or classical theism, where God is that entity. And that and so the argument that you're giving on consciousness and the argument of God, I mean, those are two radically different approaches to reality, but there's a lot of similarities in terms of how you think about that.
Yeah, but I think classical theism wants to impose a quite stark distinction between creator and creation, right? Whereas pantheism doesn't. That's kind of the defining difference between them, right? And I think that if the way in for you here is consciousness is foundational and there's only one category of thing, then I think you're much more inclined towards pantheism. Because where else do you get this distinction of creator and creation?
Yeah, no, I understand completely. I'm not sure do you need pantheism to have consciousness as the primary thing?
No, I'm not sure you do. I think that's just sort of where we've ended up here. Maybe if you follow the particular thread of mereological nihilism that I've just laid out, and you say that the fundamental thing is consciousness.
Is there anything else in reality? I mentioned abstract objects. Is that an existent that you need to account for?
I think yes. I think well, sorry, it depends what you mean by abstract objects, because I don't think abstract objects exist. Like, I'm not like a Platonist about numbers or anything, but I do think that when I sort of hold an idea in my head of like a triangle, I think that's a thing that needs to be accounted for. I think it needs to be sort of located and as I say, like, accounted for. I don't think you can just say, well, it doesn't really exist. It's in the abstract. But if you mean abstract objects as in like categories, like triangle-ness or something, I just don't think those exist.
And so you have a fictionalist approach to abstract objects, or a linguistic derivative. So that would make it consistent that you don't need that as a fundamental category.
Sorry. Yeah, when earlier you said abstract objects, I kind of, for some reason, my mind kind of went to just like things which exist only in the mind, like, you know, and I don't think that's quite what you meant.
Yeah, I mean, you know, classic Platonism, that where there are things in reality. Many mathematicians believe that they discover, not invent.
In that case, I just am not a Platonist. I'm more of an Aristotelian when it comes to forms. I think that the thing which exists is the individual triangle, and the form of triangle kind of coheres in or comes out of that.
Okay,
rather than the other way around.
so we can discount the category as a fundamental reality of abstract objects. So you would have consciousness being this fundamental thing, and then the Mereological nihilism would be a derivative of consciousness. It wouldn't be something independent of that, because that would be dualistic.
Well, yeah, the big question, of course, is whether fundamental nature is very small or whether it's very big. I think the panpsychist says it's very small and the idealist says it's very big. And so for the panpsychist version of this, it would be like the thing which exists, the only like real distinct sort of objects are individual little balls of the most fundamental sort of unit of consciousness.
Balls in the most general sense.
not balls, you know, but like the most fundamental units of consciousness are like the smallest possible divisions of what we call matter. So if I take this leather and I keep cutting it and cutting it and cutting it and cutting it, wherever that stops, whatever I end up with, for the panpsychist, it will be or have consciousness. And that's what exists. That's the only distinct object that exists, and everything else is made up of that. For the idealist, you start big. You say that the only thing that exists is the big mind, and that what we call mereological simples are a process of continually cutting into that fundamental reality. It's like that sort of metaphysical, that metaphysically sort of smooth object that we're sort of cutting into. Both of those have problems, you know. For the panpsychist version of this, why do we get individual cells and minds to do the distinct, like to sort of make the distinctions? For the idealist, as you said a moment ago, why would this seemingly would need to be like a simple, you know, and smooth qualitative experience writ large? Why does that like diversify? And short of theological answers, I'm not sure you get a good one. So I think that the reason why idealism feels a lot more like describing God and pantheism and theological in nature is potentially partly for this reason. Whereas the panpsychism is the more sort of secular, like atomistic, you know, science, still clinging on to some of the scientific revolution kind of way of thinking about it.
Yeah.